The core of our manifesto is we do not design and publish games for everyone. We design and publish games for someone. We all know that the last few years have been very challenging for the industry. It is all over, the news. But strip out the noise and you will be surprised by many positive realities.
Hello and welcome to the Game Business Show with me, Christopher Dring. One of the big surprise hits of 2024 was Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2, which now boasts over 7 million players. But it was actually one of several big hits for publisher Pullup Entertainment, which is a firm that is really focused on building specific games for certain audiences. The firm has just posted great financial results, so we thought it was worth speaking to the firm's new CEO, Geoffroy Sardin, and he's here with us now. I always get the pronunciation wrong. Hello, Geoffroy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Christopher. You could call me Geoffrey.
Geoffrey, that's so much easier.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on the results. You must have been feeling pretty good.
Yes. It's pretty sane. We just announced, the earnings. We post 390 million euros. It's more than 100%, more than the previous year. And regarding, the EBIT, the famous, KPIs to check, the sanity of a company, we announced 60.3 million euros, more than 112%, better than the previous record year in 22-23. So yes, it's a good year for the company.
You only took over the role as CEO, 3 months ago? How are you finding it?
Yes, in fact, I joined the company 1 year and a half.
Wow.
But I was, what we call the deputy CEO, and I became CEO, 3 months ago. I'm a veteran in the industry because I started in the video game industry in 98, joining Ubisoft. My first role was to take care about, the sales of this great company.
One of the reasons why I was so excited to talk to you, obviously it's been a tough year for the video games industry. We talked about it a lot on the show already, but there has been some games that have met with really strong sales, surprisingly strong sales, and you published one of them in Space Marine 2. Do you think this is a new industry sort of pattern that we're seeing emerging?
Look, Chris, we all know that the last few years have been very challenging for the industry. It is all over, the news. But strip out the noise and you will be surprised by many positive realities. First of all, in fact, the industry has not grown over the past few years, but it has stabilized at a very high level after years of impressive growth. So the industry remains powerful, and it is used to have phases of stabilization before returning to growth. It is currently impacted by a past wave of overinvestment. I saw in your several interviews that you talk about that recently. But it had already been the case in the past, and it recovered each time. So it's now going through an LC phase where projects with limited ROI can't find financing anymore. This is a necessary process to me, get the industry back on a growth trajectory. But there is plenty, in fact, of games, and the publishers are generating very healthy performance. And Pullup Entertainment and Space Marine 2 were not alone in having a great year. Look, in fact, at the really strong numbers achieved recently by, for instance, our Frenchy friend, Clair Obscur Expedition, Monster Hunter Wilds, or Elder Scrolls Oblivion, they break records. So it's true that there is maybe two industries within the industry. And we could talk about that. There is the AAA, which is, today quite suffering about, the overinvestments with skyrocketing costs up to 300, maybe more. I don't want to guess, the investment behind GTA 6, but it will be a massive success for sure. But there is, on the AAA model, there is massive financial risk as well, with long dev cycles. We are talking about 5, 7, 8, 10 years sometimes. So with low agility, in fact, to find, the right audience, low creativity, because we are talking about, franchises. On the opposite, on the AA or, indie game, there is more agility, more resilience. We could control the budget. There is high creativity to differentiate ourselves. It's a faster, time to market, between 1 and 2 years. So this is the shift. In fact, we saw recently, in the numbers, the AA and indie market is thriving right now.
We are seeing some AAA successes. Obviously, Assassin's Creed did well. You mentioned Monster Hunter Wilds. That was very AAA, I guess. I actually think every sector is slightly challenged, but there's actually opportunity in all of them. That's how I've sort of saw it. But you've got a particular, use the word editorial manifesto, or I might use the word content strategy or whatever, which is you focusing in on specific games and specific audiences. Where did this concept originate from? When did it start?
Yes, true. In fact, first of all, maybe to explain, our positioning and to talk about the manifesto.
Please do.
You are talking about. Maybe we need to go through the question who we are and where do we come from. And it will explain, our positioning. Pullup Entertainment Group is today a federation of over 600 talented individuals, primarily based in Europe, in France, in the UK, in Germany, and in the Netherlands. And the group is built on 3 pillars. The first one, and the historical, core of the group, is focused entertainment publishing. This is a well-known, publishing arm behind major successes back in the day, such as Farming Simulator, SnowRunner, A Plague Tale, and more recently with Space Marine 2. So it's a pure player in publishing, specializing, in the A and AA segment. The second pillar, and I think that you met them, during Summer Game Fest, is Dotemu. Dotemu is a developer publisher focused on independent and retro gaming, and is very well known with titles such as Streets of Rage 4 or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle Shredder's Revenge. Quite hard to explain, and the iconic, beat them up, and this pillar is today in the spotlight with several releases already announced, including Absalom, Ninja Gaiden Ragebound, and Marvel Cosmic Invasion, which is also, set to launch in 2025 on the Switch too.
I actually played the Marvel game at Summer Game Fest. I wanted to go back again. I very much up my street. It's a great game. I enjoyed that.
What is your review score, Chris?
Well, based on my 15 minutes, there's half an hour of playtime. I don't know. I'm famously not a critic. I try not to, but I'm of an age where I like to go back. But I think it's one of the strongest of the Dotemu games I've played, and they're all really high quality. But anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your...
Good feedback, Christopher. I will tell it to the team. And the third pillar, and I will finish on it, the third pillar consists on our own studios. There is 5 studios in-house. The first one is a very well-known UK studios called Dovetail Games, the leader in train simulation, based in Chatham, near London.
Medway, yeah.
Yes. The second studio is Deck 13, based in Frankfurt. They are specializing Souls-like games with the Surge IP. I don't know if you know this IP. The 1210 Studios, based in Paris, which recently launched a demo of its Metroidvania called Memories in Orbit during Steam latest Summer Game Fest, Summer Next Fest. Black Mill Studio, a Dutch studio behind the first-person shooter Verdun, based on the first worldwide, battlefield. And finally, Lekir Studio, a French studio, which recently released Metal Slug Tactics, published by Dotemu. So I thought it was quite important to list all these entities to highlight that what unites them in their focus of highly targeted audiences who seek for uncompromising gameplay and complex game mechanics. That's why our manifesto and positioning are the follows. So we are coming to the manifesto you are talking about. Our manifesto is we remain true to what we believe in, uncompromising gameplay. This means prioritizing the gaming experience itself on game mechanics, interaction, fluidity, fun, and the depth of actions offered to the player. So the road to success for us is based on a simple idea. Players, they are looking for niche and very targeted, impactful experiences. So the core of our manifesto is we do not design and publish games for everyone. We design and publish games for someone. And when the execution is right, is good, at some point it's end up resonating with many more people. It's happened exactly what's happened, on Space Marine 2. To be very frank with you, Chris, we didn't believe, in fact, at some point before we launched the game that we could hit, 7 million unique players. It was incredible for us. And in fact, with, the word of mouth, with the execution, the perfect execution done by our partner Saber Interactive, we ended up, in fact, to expand the audience from the very passionate people on the Warhammer, lore, to some people who could enjoy with all the features and the lore of Space Marine.
Yeah. We had Arrowhead on the show a few months ago, and they've got a similar motto, which is a game for everyone is a game for no one, or something like that. And they've got that belief where if you make a game, an uncompromising game for a specific audience, there's a chance that game can break out. And, he gave examples of that's what happened with From Software's games. It's what happened with Dark Souls, right? It was a game very much made for a very hardcore RPG audience. And now it's a mainstream hit. So it's always fascinating when that happens. And I guess that's kind of what happened with Space Marine 2, right?
Exactly. And it's a very good example. From Software is an example for the company to follow, in fact. They are working very closely with the community in advance, doing tons of beta, to be sure that they could hit the heart of their core audience before, thinking about expanding them. So it's a good example. It's a good mentor for us.
You talked about talking with the community. This is the thing that I don't know, we haven't talked about it this much, which actually when it comes to games that have a focus, whether that's Space Marine 2 or whether that's, Train Simulator, I know the Dovetail folks really well. If they work really closely with those communities, and because if they know they're making a game only for that audience, even if it might break out, but you focus on that, it makes it a little easier. You know who to market it to, who to work with. It makes it simpler in a way when it obviously you've got to do a good job, but in ways it gives you a very pointy sort of direction.
True. Now, true, Chris. In fact, if we take the example of Dovetail Games with Train Sim, we are addressing, the train simulation game to passionate people. Sometimes they know better, in fact, the environment of what the train are. You can't imagine the number of interaction the teams got with the community. Sometimes they are yelling after them because the tone, the color of the logo is not the right one and so on. So they are becoming part of the team. And in fact, year after year, we ask, in fact, the community to be part of the producing. And some of the DLCs we are granting to the community, whether it's a paid DLC or a free DLC, they are coming from the community. And so there is a tons of interaction between those guys who are producing with our tools, some content for the game itself. So it's not, a relation between the publisher and the developer and the community. It's a global one.
Mm.
To be very frank with you, I discovered that when I joined, this company. It wasn't the case, in my previous life.
No. Well, no, and I guess that's, I spoke to Dotemu, you mentioned it. I did see them at Summer Game Fest. I did play their game. They were showcasing, and we talked about, because they started off basically doing remasters, and then they started moving into spiritual successors or full-blown sequels, which has given them this sort of fan base, I guess, which means it gives them an ability to work with them and build those games to what we were talking about before. But it is a big year for them, because not only is there, a big Marvel game and a big sequel to an established franchise, they're also doing a new IP, which obviously it will have a retro style to it, but it's a new game. Talk to me about the ambition then for Dotemu. What's your, where do you want that to go?
It's true that Dotemu focuses on resurrecting, legacy IP faithfully, but also innovates with original titles. We'll talk about this one. So today, in fact, in the pipeline we already announced from Dotemu, there is several games. The first one is Marvel Cosmic Invasion. We already mentioned it, and it will be launched this year in 2025. We have to be a little bit patient to announce, the exact release date. The Ninja Gaiden Regiment, which will be released, the 31st of July. We launched the demo during the same Next Fest, on Steam, and it's part of the top 20 demo, played. So It resonates a lot on the community side. But we announced also, a game called Absolum. And I think you are referring to it.
Yeah.
It was showcased during the Summer Game Fest as well. So it's a first big project with original title from Dotemu. And it is the new, what we called Rogue Them Up from Dotemu. That's been making waves since its demo smash onto Steam during the Summer Next Fest. And I think it was part of the most playable demo during this event. It is a kind of a fusion of beat them up action and roguelite progression. So it's a very promising, title. It would be, to me, in my opinion, but don't tell it, to everybody. It will be, I think, the gem of this portfolio.
Uh-huh.
So looking forward to announce, more on this one.
Do you see much growth in this area in terms of this sort of retro scene? It's not quite, it's more the nostalgic scene, whatever term you want to call it. Do you see much growth?
It's a trend. We are looking, from especially in Japan. It's coming from Japan, with all the initiative coming from Atlus, the entity from Sega Sammy, and it's growing up year after year. It's quite solid because it's a kind of a combination between nostalgia on one side, but, using the actual and current, engine and so on to put a lot of fresh, momentum within the gameplay. And it is resonating to the audience because we are talking about uncompromising gameplay, very frenetic, gameplay. So today people are looking for that. It's a big it's a segment growth today. That's why we are investing on it.
An area that's challenged, but also a huge opportunity is the live service space. And now you already do stuff in, Space Marine 2's a live service game in many ways, and obviously Train Simulator and those sort of things. But do you need to push further into that world in order to deliver on your ambitions?
Yes, we think strongly. So there is live service. It depends on what you are talking about regarding live service.
Yeah.
There is on the single player, it's a DLC and the patches and so on. And on the multiplayer service, like what's on Space Marine 2, we are talking about the same. This is already the case for Pullup Entertainment on Train Sim. Believe me or not, but we already released more than 100 DLCs on Train Simulator. And coming back on what we discussed before, a big part of those DLCs are made by the community itself. Mm-hmm. And Space Marine 2, we are delivering also extra content planned for several years. In fact, it's quite easy to say, but to put in place an organization to manage the live service is quite huge in terms of processing, in terms of organization and skills. So we've got, with the arrival of a veteran of the industry, head of our studio called Ahmed Boukhelifa, and he was previously founder and executive producer at Ivory Tower. I don't know if you know this studio, which create The Crew, with The Crew is a quintessence of what a live game service is. So he's infusing, the processes, the organization and skills needed to master, the live topic. It's quite important for the group, in fact, to be sure that we could create this traction and to retain, our community within our content.
It's quite hostile. It's quite a scary little market because it is very hard to break into it. But I guess your focus on being uncompromising, and you don't necessarily need to be Fortnite or whatever to be successful in this space.
True. In fact, we are not comparing with the big players. We want to please, our audience first. Mm-hmm. And pleasing our audience is to be sure that we could respond to their demand. And don't make me wrong, we won't put all the live service within all the portfolio. We are choosing, our battle. And today, train simulation is something quite important in that way. And Space Marine 2, before we will launch, Space Marine 3, because we already announced, the sequel. That's why we want to propose to the audience before, Space Marine 3 will be out, a big bunch of extra content.
You said you're increasing your focus on owned and co-owned IP. Obviously, we talked about Marvel already, and you talked about Warhammer 40,000, but which is obviously not owned IP. What does that mean for your licensed properties? Are you scaling back on those?
Yes, in fact, just to give you more context, out of the 50 projects currently in the pipeline for the coming months and years, 20 will be based on our own and co-owned IPs. And the rest of the portfolio will consist of titles based on strong license property, as we already mentioned, on the Games Workshop, Marvel, Koei Tecmo, and etc., as well as original projects from third-party developers. So it will be a good balance between own co-owned IP and licensed IP and original projects.
You've expanded quite a lot. You have quite a lot of different strings to your bow. Are you still looking to acquire and grow, particularly after your latest financials? Are you looking to invest further in studios and teams, or is because of the way the industry is at the moment, you're sort of holding back on that?
In fact, we will be agile, Chris. In fact, first, we will continue to focus our resources on internal and publishing projects. Pullup Entertainment is a new group, so we need to look for, synergies. But today, why it's not a priority, we'll continue to review different external opportunities in a context where valuation are decreased materially. So we will be very disciplined. 20% of my time, maybe more sometimes, is to think about, the future. And so maybe some external opportunities, but it's not the biggest priority today.
We spoke earlier, you think the industry's in a relatively good place. Your financial results, your reports says the same thing. What makes you so confident the industry's going to start growing again?
Our positioning is good. We prove that. There is first of all, on the AA indie games market, we are addressing offer more depth versus the AAA segment today, and notably on PC, where there is more appetite for discovering new things among a highly passionate and committed audience. The second point is data from Steam is showing growth for the AA indie segment since 2023. There is a shift. And third, we are very highly selective. This implies our games have a strong personality. That's what makes them recognizable, and appealing. We saw this year with Space Marine, of course, but also with games such as Void Crew or Drova, it's indie games who are receiving amazing reception from players and were more successful than anticipated. We just launched a game called Roadcraft.
Yes.
It's a simulation game. And it's also outperforming expectation. This game, there is no comparison. There is no competition on this game. We are proposing, something new, fresh, and innovative. And this is exactly, the path we want to pave the way on this one, and we want to invest on this kind of a pattern today.
I know that it's early days, but you're also looking into film and TV adaptations as well. It does seem like you've got a lot going on, a lot to be thinking about. Where do you see this going? What's your, I don't know, I always say, a question I often ask on this show is, what's your 10-year, 5-year vision? But you don't have to put an exact timeline on it. What's your ultimate goal?
Yes, in fact, within, the group, we've got 3 people who are experts on this kind of industry. It's a different industry, so we don't have to be in a hurry. Today, we are working quite closely with some platform, on several IPs, internal IPs. For sure, all the narrative one are the most appealing IPs to be proposed in a series or shows or film. For several months, we are working on the Plague Tale, that we already announced a few days ago during the Xbox showcase. We announced the prequel of a Plague Tale called Resonance Plague Tale Legacy. And this game and this franchise is the best candidate, in fact, to be port, if I must say, or to be proposed as an audiovisual project. It's not, our priority. It could be a very fantastic, opportunity. but it's not a priority, first priority within the group. Maybe the cherry on the cake,
I'm sort of out of questions. It's great to see you have this success. And I think it is reassuring as an industry to see there are so many companies that are just doing a very good job, a very specific thing, and finding big audiences. We talked a little bit more about film and TV there, but how do you see Pullup in going? What's your vision? What's your plan? What's your ambition? What's your goal? That's the word I'm looking for. Goal.
It's first of all, it's not a question of growing in terms of number of creative and so on. We want to do what we are mastering right. We want to do it right, and to be a very good specialized in the simulation genre. First of all, simulation for us, it's especially in the transport, train simulation, or the other, urban transport. It's a niche segment where the audience is very keen, in fact, to talk about, evolution and be part of the adventure. So the first thing is to be closer to the audience, to be experts in some segment and some niche segments. And if by case, the execution is good, to expand this segment to another audience. So we are not running after, being a big player. We want to be a good player in our own landscape. This is our ambition. And the second thing, in terms of creativity, the team, they are looking for, proposing the best qualitative game, as all the studios, I'm sure. But to do it, with the common sense that we are not talking to everybody, but we are talking to someone. And this is quite important to stay on this positioning.
Brilliant. We're out of time now. So thank you, Geoffroy, for joining us today. And good luck with all of the Dotemu launches and all the big games you've got coming up.
Thank you, Chris.
We will be back with more game business newsletters and shows in the coming days. To catch up on our past videos and podcasts, you can find them all at thegamebusiness.com and on our YouTube channel. To make sure you don't miss any of our work, you can sign up to our newsletter at thegamebusiness.com. Until next time, thank you for tuning in. What is the first thing you do when you come into work in the morning?
Doing a review of some outlets, just to make sure that I've got the latest information.
Reading the game business, obviously. Will game streaming ever become a mainstream proposition?
Wow, tough question. I'm positive on this one, so yes.
What is the greatest album of all time?
I'm not saying that because you are a British citizen, Chris, but I'm a big fan of David Bowie. So every album.
Will Nintendo Switch 2 outperform Nintendo Switch 1?
I think so. The first numbers are incredible.
And finally, if you could lead any other games company, which would it be?
I'm a big Nintendo fan, to be frank with you. So after this, I will take my Switch 2, playing on Mario Kart.
Okay. So would you like to lead Nintendo?
No, I need to learn Japanese first.